Hello and welcome to the bonus YouTube character re-upload of Valerie Barlow.
Yeah, we've been doing this for like how many months now? 8-9 months, and still not really sure what
need a
snappy titles
snappy
to
intro.
record to call this.
So
we just do it. We just ad-lib it and go, "Blah," and we don't know what we're saying.
Character profile for Valerie Barlow, which was originally from Conversation Street episode 93. And so this was recorded before we had seen any episodes with
Long
Valerie
before.
Barlow in it.
Yeah, this was like,
the
what,
second year of
2013,
podcast.
early 2014 or so. Yeah, we really had no idea. And you can probably tell by what we were about to say. Well, we just say it outright. We've got no idea about this person, but we can certainly read about her on Corripedia and regurgitate that information to you. So in a minute, you'll be able to hear that and then come back at the end if you want to hear some updated thoughts. Now we actually know what we're talking about.
That's a stretch.
It has a promise for you.
Okay.
See you in a bit. No. Classic character profile time now, and this was inspired by the hairdryer storyline this week, and also a picture I put on Twitter, because when Deirdre Barlow bought one of these dodgy hairdryers, I did wonder whether like it would start setting fire or electrocuting or something, because we know that Barlows do not necessarily have the most sterling track record when it comes to hairdryers. Ken's first wife, Valerie Barlow, fell foul of a hairdryer and she died, so we thought we'd have a look at that character this week. Valerie Barlow, and this is certainly, before I started researching this, a character that I knew nothing about. I assume you didn't either.
No, I actually wrote the part of Valerie Barlow from beginning to end.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I didn't...
I'll let you do most of this, because obviously I've heard it all before.
I know that. I mean, we've all seen the scene where she gets electrocuted and then falls down. That's quite often used in the clip shows. But I knew nothing else at all about Valerie, and I think I wouldn't recognise her if I saw her in scenes. So it was very interesting for me to find out about her this week when I was doing my research.
That's a shameful confession for somebody that runs a Coronation Street podcast.
There's lots of characters. I can't expect to know about them all.
Who's qualified you to do this job? That's what I want to know.
My mum, who started me watching Coronation Street.
I've got a word to have there.
Yeah, so Valerie Barlow, I hope you find this interesting, because
You did.
I found it interesting.
And so did I.
And I'm sure there'll be people listening who remember Valerie Barlow and
will correct
us as always. But anyway, Valerie Barlow, she was born on the 26th of November 1942 and she died on the 27th of January 1971. Yeah, that's the day before my mum's birthday. Her parents were Alfred and Edith Tatlock, not to get confused with Albert Tatlock. Alfred and Albert were brothers. That was confusing in the Tatlock household. She had a half-sister called Joyce, and she married Ken in 1962. 2 children, Susan and Peter. Yes, this is Peter Barlow's mum we're talking about here. And she first appeared on the 7th of August 1961, before becoming a cropper on the 27th of January 1971. All in all, she made 628 appearances on Coronation Street, which is a pretty good innings, and she is played by Anne Reid, who's apparently quite a famous actress and gone on to do many things.
She was trained at RADA, darling.
Yeah.
She went to school near William Roach in North Wales, but they never actually met each other. And she came to the show in 1961, but she had to be written out in November because there was the equity strike. And then she returned in the following July when the strike was over.
Yeah, the original plan was for her to just stay in there, and I think, and they had a bit of a storyline where she went off to Scotland, that she wasn't going to go, but then suddenly they just said she went. Yeah. Yeah.
So in 1961, she appeared in the show properly, after she was toing and froing from Coronation Street to visit her uncle Albert, and she moves in with them. And she ends up dating Ken, but she feels intimidated by him because he's a university educated and that. He's got a degree in everything, and he's got aspirations of doing better than his working class roots. How did that work out for you, Kenneth? She feels that he will tire of her, but they grow closer after Ken's mum dies.
Yeah.
How rude.
So then this is when she then goes off to Glasgow that autumn.
Lives with her parents when they move up there for a job.
Yeah.
And she comes back in 1962 because during a school trip in Scotland, that'd be nice, wouldn't it? Got to go for a school trip to Scotland.
It's a bit too far.
Ken tracks Valerie down and they get engaged.
Yeah, he proposes to her the day after she comes back from Scotland because he's so besotted by her.
They get married and everything.
But she did think that he was just looking for a mother figure to replace to replace Ida.
Viola.
Yeah, well, I met you second day after coming into university,
Exactly.
didn't I? Was like,
I can't cook. I can't cook. I need a woman. So they go on honeymoon in London, and Ken has to pay for it by selling his motorbike.
Yeah, or a scooter or something.
Death trap machine. And Valerie converts the front room of their new home, number 9, which they bought for £550, into a salon.
Yeah, because she was hairdresser by trade. I think she must have been, when was this? 1962. So she was 20 at this stage. So she was just starting her career as a hairdresser.
I think she's doing lots of like modish kind of bob cuts.
I expect so, but she was. So 1963, she got to know one of Ken's teaching friends, Dave. So Dave and Ken had been petitioning for a crossing to go outside of Bessie Street's school. Because this girl had been hit and killed there. But Dave blamed himself for this girl's death because I don't think they were able to get this crossing there, or weren't they get it there or in time. And they were supposed to do a debate about it on TV, I think, but Dave pulled out of it.
The 60s were a different time.
Yeah. But he was sort of very distraught about thinking he was responsible for this girl's death. So Valerie was comforting him, and they managed to get closer. And she was all set to leave Ken for Dave. But then she went round there and she realised that he wasn't interested in having an affair. Didn't want to know.
Gosh,
so she went scurrying back to Ken.
That was a bit of mixed messages, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In 1964, she closed down the salon and converted it into a nursery when she discovered she was pregnant with twins. And in 1965, she gave birth to them, Peter and Susan. And funnily enough, Granada, the studio, got sent lots of presents for them.
That
which
happens
is a bit
in those
crazy.
days, doesn't it?
And she also started taking evening classes in sociology.
Yeah, maybe is that to help with her discussions with Ken? Maybe.
She threatened to leave Ken when he left the children alone at home to go out to the Rovers, and the house caught on fire. Whoops.
Yeah, Ken was a bit of a bad dad. I think he just popped out to the Rovers just to get a cigarette or something like that. But some coal came out of the fire. Some coal fell out of the fire. So he was in
trouble.
Bad books for that.
See, my uncle did that to me when I was a baby.
But the house didn't burn down.
No, he left me upstairs because he forgot I was there and went to the pub, and my parents came home and they were a bit cross with him.
How old were you then?
I was literally a baby. Like, I couldn't sit up myself.
Wow.
Good job I didn't choke on my own vomit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is rather. So in 1966, she took the kids up to Glasgow for a bit because she discovered that Ken had an affair with Jackie Marsh, who I expect was a bit more like intellectual and more educated than Valerie was.
It sounds like an intellectual name, doesn't it?
Jackie Marsh, top reporter. Yeah, but he was able to convince her to return. Also that year, Valerie had piano lessons from Ina Sharples.
How sophisticated.
Yes.
She probably learned on the very piano that we saw hidden in the cupboard in the Rovers.
Oh yeah,
it probably was that piano.
Been,
How many do you think
been.
they've got?
I don't know. Not
probably
many. That's
one.
The Granada piano, yeah. So she comes back, so that was all okay. 1967. This was quite funny. Ken was sent to prison for a week because he refused to pay a £5 fine after he was arrested for taking part in an anti-Vietnam demonstration.
Fight the system.
And it wasn't just like he's in a demonstration so he's going to get arrested. It was an illegal demonstration because they wanted to have it in a town hall, but they wouldn't let them.
No, none of that nonsense.
Well, he stuck to his principles because that's what Ken's
he's like.
And and Valerie was trying to convince him, look, just pay the fine, and because I can't cope with the kids on my own, but she had to.
I'd be more like, pay the fine because I don't want you to go to prison.
Because the children, or just
because I don't want you to go to prison.
Married to a jailbird.
Well, can you imagine trying to get a job as a teacher because you've been to prison?
Oh yeah. Good job he was already a teacher.
It's a different time in the 60s.
I can't imagine Ken going to prison. Although I think, to be honest, everyone in Coronation Street seems to have spent the night in the cells for one reason or another. Also that year, just for a laugh, Valerie swapped jobs with Irma Barlow, who was married to Ken's brother David, because they both thought that the other had an easier job.
Yeah, but what did they do? We didn't put that down.
Valerie was a housewife, and I can't remember what Irma did. I think she worked in the shop, maybe. Not sure. Well, in 1968, Valerie herself started to work in the shop under Maggie Clegg.
Can't have been that bad then.
And she convinced Ken to move to the maisonettes, which were built up on the opposite side of the street after the mission hall and the raincoat factory were closed. Ken had been reluctant to move, but Val was able to guilt trip him by reminding him of an affair that he'd had in 1966, this one with Jackie.
You've got to play your trump cards.
Women. Always remind us of things we've done wrong.
Write them down if you have to, all the things they do wrong, because they don't remember what you did wrong. No. So you've got bad memories.
A big story for Val later on in that year was that she was held at gunpoint by convicted rapist Frank Riley when he sort of burst into their maisonette. But she was able to call for help by tapping on the pipes at the maisonettes, and then Ina Sharples heard it, and
God,
everything was okay.
It was hard back in the days before we had mobile phones, isn't it? I had to use Morse code.
She nearly split up with Ken again then because he didn't believe that Riley hadn't touched her.
That's bizarre.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit weird when I read
like
that.
Damaged goods or something.
I don't know.
Some very unsavoury insinuations there. In 1969, Mummy Edith came to stay, and like all mother-in-laws, she was an interfering old baggage and tried to convince them to leave Weatherfield.
But instead,
you like my mum, don't you?
Yeah, she's lovely.
Yes. That was the joke.
Instead, she stayed, and she got a job in a new salon that Alan Howard managed to find for her. She earned £14 a week back then, so why not stay for that?
I would.
But Ken didn't like the idea of losing his housewife. He's like, I'm the man, I earn the money for this house.
Oh, that's terrible.
I think.
I would so much hate it if I had to work and I had to stay at home all day long.
I think Valerie was very much a traditional kind of, I'm going to look after my man, and I think that sort of things were quite like back in those days.
I love that.
You'd love to be a housewife.
Basically, just do what I do already, but I don't have to do a job as well.
Ken was a teacher. I'm a teacher, so...
Why don't you rake in the big bucks like Ken? He's got a criminal record and everything.
I know.
In 1970, Valerie staged a walkout when her new boss, Dave Smith, offered her a pay rise but sacked the other staff.
I would have just taken the pay rise.
Yeah, but you have to do their jobs then, don't you? That's what I assume.
Oh, yeah.
They would have got you suckered in, wouldn't he?
Yeah, so that was kind of a more militant thing she did. I don't know the character at all, but from what I've been reading about her, she's been quite docile, but maybe standing up to Ken when he's been a bit of an idiot. But
there's always when we delve into back history of Coronation Street characters, there's always big storylines involving factory walkouts and protests and things that wouldn't be every so often in the street. They all threaten to walk out if someone gets sacked, but it's nowhere near as sort of major a storyline as it used to be back in the old days because of all the strikes that used to
unions
happen.
And
all that kind of stuff.
It seems like Valerie was one to stick to her principles. It was a bit like Hayley because she would participate in walkouts as well, wouldn't she?
Yep. Socialists.
Also in 1970, Val was taught to drive by Ray Langton, and they were off driving so much that Emily thought that they were having an affair. I think tongues were wagging when Valerie kept going out with Ray, so Emily wrote to Ken to say you better watch out, and she had a tail between her legs when she found out there was nothing.
Did she deliver it by hand? And if she delivered it by hand, why didn't she just tell him?
I don't know.
It's intriguing.
I don't know.
In 1971, all of Ken's dreams came true, I assume, because he was offered a teaching post in Jamaica.
I'd love to know how that came about.
Why not?
How does one get offered teaching jobs in Jamaica?
Wow. Let's go. But she ruins it, doesn't she, Valerie? She totally ruins the whole thing.
Yeah,
they're
leaving,
electrocutes herself. What a way to protest.
Yeah, so Ken was already at the Rovers kind of for this leaving party. Val was getting ready because how long it takes women to get ready for things.
Women in their hair.
Yeah, so she had her hairdryer and it had a faulty plug, but she decided to try and fix it herself. She tried to use it anyway.
Don't try to fix things, you silly billies. You don't know how electronics work.
No.
That's a man's job.
Back in the 70s.
Just go and do some cooking.
And it wasn't just that killed her, because when she She fell down. She knocked over a electric fire and then was burned.
Really,
burned
there was
death.
no hope for her, was there? She was going to die one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think that was the end of the Maisonettes after that as well, because they were really, really
She
short-lived.
totally ruined it, didn't she?
Yeah.
Totally screwed that one up, Valerie.
18.26 million people watched her die, and then 18.92 tuned into her funeral. I wonder at the time whether how many people out of that lot
vultures
knew that she was going to die, because I mean back then there weren't soap spoilers like there are now, were they?
No, but they had to watch it anyway, didn't they? There was nothing else to watch.
Well, yeah.
There was
ITV
3
and
channels.
BBC. 2 channels probably back then.
Blimey.
Oh no, there might have been 3.
I'm surprised there was 18.26 million people with television.
I wonder how many deaths there'd been on Coronation Street by that point. Because back in the olden days, I mean, nowadays deaths are 10 a penny, aren't they? But they were spread out back then.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was probably pretty shocking, especially as she was such like a nice character by the sounds of it.
It's not nice if she ruins people's basically blagging holiday of a lifetime to teach in Jamaica.
So yeah, that was the end of Valerie, and Peter and Susan were left mummyless. Ken couldn't cope looking after the children himself, so he sent them up to Scotland to live with Edith, and then they grew up not really knowing Ken. And for the next 30 years, Peter occasionally was seen to return to Weatherfield, like he came back to do his to resit his O-levels or something. But yeah, on the whole,
A bit random.
Yeah, Ken didn't know his children, and that's been brought up
Yeah,
a few times
Peter
between
throws
them.
it back in his face every now and then.
Yeah, especially because it all links up to the fact that Simon isn't always living with Peter.
And when Ken tries to lecture him about it, he's like, "Oh, you can't tell me, Dad, you were never there when I was growing up."
Yeah. So Anne Reid decided to quit the role. She wasn't sacked, although I think it was maybe 1964. Ken and Anne were both in danger of
Really?
being sacked, but I think a new producer came in and stopped
Saved
that from
them
happening.
from the chop.
Yeah, she asked to be killed off because she had no desire to return. Don't have many quotes from Anne, but she did say about her final scenes, "They put this newspaper around me and they set fire to it, and I lay there and kept thinking, keep your eyes closed.
That's acting.
I got nervous, and as I got up, I could feel my arm getting hot. It was probably quite safe, but I couldn't lie there with all those flames."
No.
No,
Don't lie around when there's flames.
no, bad idea.
Yeah.
So she then took some time off of acting to look after her son, but she came back in the 1980s, and I was surprised how many things I'd watched with her in without knowing. Because I didn't know really anything about Valerie Barlow. I had no idea about the actress.
Let's be honest, Michael. You could see the same actress in about 10 different things, and if she's has her hair slightly differently, you would not know it's the same person.
Not very good at actresses. But things that I've watched with her in, Hetty Wainthropp Investigates.
That was a classic.
Gentle Northern detective drama. She was in that.
That was an amazing programme. Bring it back.
An episode of it. She's been in Doctor Who twice, once in 1989, then again in 2007.
Everyone's been in Doctor Who twice, and Casualty. I have. And the Bill.
Well, in 2007, I mean, I didn't watch the 1989 one, but in 2007 she played this like deranged granny-looking alien called a plasmavore, and she sucked out people's blood through a straw. And I remember the character. That was quite funny.
Doctor Who is a silly programme.
She was in Wallace and Gromit. She played Wendoline in Wallace and Gromit, and I
Now
had no
that
idea.
is an iconic character.
Wendoline is a total iconic character. We used to
She's
call
like the poster girl of Wallace and Gromit.
We used to call my mum Wendoline because she did her hair like it for quite a long time, and when she had her pear-shaped earrings on, we always used to call her Wendoline.
And she does like Wensleydale cheese.
Yeah.
She goes mad for it, doesn't she, your mum?
But she's also been in Casualty. She's been in Dinner Ladies, and she even starred next to Catherine Kelly recently on a drama called The Last Witch on Sky Living.
It sounds, just from the name, I want to watch that.
Yeah, it sounds good.
I wonder what it's about.
The Final Sorceress. And
That's a better name.
And she's still going strong. She's got a series premiering on BBC One later this year called Our Zoo, which is all about Chester Zoo. And she's been doing lots of theatre work as well. I think it's like a drama about
drama about a zoo?
Yeah,
about a real zoo?
Yeah, Chester Zoo.
Yeah, I know Chester's a real zoo, but how can you have a TV
I don't know, they make drama about Selfridges, don't they?
How crazy.
Yeah, so that is the story of Valerie Barlow.
And she works on the theatre.
Oh yeah, so I think
she trained at RADA.
Yeah. I think
you have to say it like that.
I think she's got an MBE. I think
Probably.
I read that.
They all end up with one, don't they?
Yeah. So that was Val. Nice, friendly, She wasn't one to gossip about other people.
Boring.
I wonder whether she was boring or whether people liked her.
When you say nice about someone who's in a soap, you mean they're boring, though, don't you? Because whoever watches a scene with a nice character in it go, oh, they're nice, aren't they? That was a nice scene.
Sinead is nice. She's not boring.
Oh.
Wikipedia calls whoever wrote the Anne Reid page said that Ken and Valerie were a soap super couple.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about it either.
I don't think they are a pairing that has stood the test of time, mostly because Ken
died.
is now with Deirdre.
Well, yeah, if you think of... Ken's been married 3 times, and the second one nobody knows anything about, barely. Janet, I think it was. That didn't last very long. But yeah, when you think of Ken and his wife, you think Deirdre. And they were split up for quite a long time as well. Yeah. And how would you say that this description of Valerie compares to Deirdre? Deirdre's not like a Stepford wife kind of housewife kind of.
She's a bit of a rebel, isn't she? She thinks she is.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that Deirdre is a lot more colourful character than Valerie. It makes me wonder how Ken ever ended up with Deirdre.
But there is still... Deirdre's not academic, and like Valerie's not academic. It sounds to me like Valerie was more academic even than Deirdre was.
I think Ken's just attracted to people that he can impress with long words, and he can use them in a sentence without really knowing what they mean, and the woman's just impressed by the sound of the word. Yeah,
but I mean, Deirdre did get bored of Ken at times, and that's what caused the affair with Mike Baldwin, and Valerie did have... Well, she was going to have an affair with this bloke, and she threatened to leave Ken, but I don't think... I think Deirdre was seemed to be a bit flightier and a little bit less loyal in her time. But she stuck with it.
Yeah, she didn't really have a choice, did she?
No. I love Deirdre at the moment, and I'm glad that Val died. So that he could find her eventually. Yeah, sorry.
Just think how different the show would be if Ken had gone off to Jamaica.
I know. When I think that this Val electrocuting herself was one of the turning points in Coronation Street, really, just because Coronation Street is the story of Ken Barlow.
Yeah.
And it would have hugely changed the face of the street if Val had stayed. Peter and Susan would have grown up there. They probably would have been even bigger characters. We would have had nothing with Deirdre. Would Ken have still had all of his affairs that he's had since then? Probably, but...
Such a naughty, naughty man.
Or maybe he would have been written out because they seem to be just a generally happy family, the odd spat here and there.
I think you're forgetting the obvious thing where this would have gone.
What?
The show would have moved from Weatherfield to Jamaica.
They could have had like a spin-off.
They could have just moved the show to Jamaica.
Just so it's about Ken.
Yeah, can you imagine watching it now in Jamaica? That'd be awesome.
Yeah, so Valerie Barlow, you did Coronation Street quite a service by dying, so we salute you for that.
Harsh but fair.
So that's it for the character profile. Should we just leave it there? Back to the Future. Valerie Barlow, eh? Well, what do you think? What's your updated 2020 opinion?
I loved Valerie Barlow in the end. I thought she was great.
I had mixed feelings. When she first came in, I thought she was a bit bland, bit nothing. And I think in the character profile, we kind of say she was fairly docile, not necessarily well remembered. Her and Ken aren't, a Corrie couple for the ages. And I still would stand by that. But yeah, when she started, not so great. But she had some really good scenes in the middle, like when she was taken hostage was probably my favourite Val Barlow moment up in the Maisonettes.
By Joe Donnelly.
No, it wasn't Joe Donnelly.
Joe Donnelly.
It was not Joe Donnelly, it was someone else.
Somebody else,
in the
I'm
60s.
sorry, yeah.
Somebody else, I don't remember who, even though we've probably just been talking about it. But yeah, that was great, it really showed her acting prowess.
And also, yeah, the character of Val, like, being a bit resourceful and, what she was like in a pinch.
Mm.
I really liked Val because...
What did you like about her?
I thought, more so than they do now, old Corrie felt like a lot of the people were real people. I really felt like Val was a real person.
Getting on with real persons.
She did.
Things.
They did do a lot more humdrum run-of-the-mill domestic things.
Like getting kidnapped in the Masonets, yeah.
Well, we've all
Apart
been
from that little
kidnapped
blip.
every now and then.
I
It's
kidnap
just
you every
something-
Friday night to record this
You do,
podcast.
don't
I hold
you?
you hostage until you've given your opinion for 3 or 4 hours.
She just was a really like chilled yet intelligent. This is the thing.
That's
She
the
was
thing,
very
yeah.
intelligent and she was reserved, but because she was a woman in the 60s, she didn't get too much of a chance to sort of exercise her intellectual muscles, but much more than Deirdre ever was. She
I
was
think
more
so.
of an intellectual match for Ken.
Yeah, and we said in the character profile that when you think of, who's Ken's
Perfect
match and who's the person that he's most well remembered for being with, it's Deirdre, hands
of
down,
course,
isn't
yeah.
it? And nobody says
And they've got
Valerie
a
or
much
Janet.
more
but
interesting relationship, her and Deirdre, him and
him and
Deirdre.
But definitely on a
If you would kind of pick
intellectual match.
his perfect wife, you would probably pick Val.
Yeah, and we said how much of a turning point the hairdryer incident was, because had Anne Reid decided to stay on the programme all the way through, I mean, her career would have been so totally different, because she's gone on to do some brilliant things. We recently saw her in, was it Years and Years?
Yeah.
Is that what it was called? And I still personally think that Wendelene from Wallace and Gromit was the highlight of her career, in my opinion. But yeah, and then also, obviously, Ken's life would have been so different had she decided to stay, unless they had said, well, let's ship him off to Jamaica, and that's the end of Ken Barlow.
It kind of felt as well like you got to watch what it was like to be a housewife in the 60s by following her and what she was up to and what her interests were and what was she concerned about.
Yeah.
Because that's like, from an anthropological point of view, that's one of the things I like about watching the old episodes, is that you feel like you're learning about what life used to be like.
Yeah, it's like a little time capsule, isn't it? That
Before
you're having
we
a
were
peek
alive
into.
in the UK.
Yeah.
And I also, obviously, she was a very pretty, attractive, it sounds weird, but like clean and well turned out, like this, because she was,
But not in a fake sort of way, not
and-
like all made up and
no, she
perfect
wasn't like
looking.
a Stepford wife. She was, yeah.
But also not like so many modern TV stars are like made to look perfect
No,
for the
she's
camera.
not, no.
She's not. She was
a
just
she's an
naturally
ordinary
beautiful.
woman,
yeah.
I really, really enjoyed watching Valerie.
Yeah,
She's
I liked
one
her.
of, well, I think old Corrie was really good at female characters, just young female characters, being a bit bolshy, a bit opinionated,
But still retaining that likability, because there's such a fine line, because you can be bolshy and just turn all the viewers against you, and I don't
She
think
wasn't
Valerie had that.
brassy or brash or...
No. I really did enjoy her. I'm glad that my opinion on her changed as we went through the 60s up until her demise. I do say that I still I reckon that her death was actually pretty weak. It kind of pop fizz bang dead. But
I thought well,
if it was done these days, it would be a bit more edge of your seat sensation. They probably would have shown the whole of the Masonettes burning down.
yeah.
Maybe
she had a very sad
I've just
and
got
tragic
modern
end,
standards.
didn't she?
She did indeed.
And in a way, she kind of sacrificed herself to keep Ken in the show, because at various points throughout Ken's backstory, and I think people who watch Corrie now don't really appreciate that it wasn't like Ken was always the one that would survive. Like Ken, it wasn't like the point of the show was Ken. It just kind of happens to be a great coincidence that he was like one of the first characters, and it felt like the story could have been about him from the start, and he survived through the years.
But it's about all the people he's outlived, isn't it?
Yeah.
Valerie, Albert, Susan,
Yeah.
of course. Who's next? I mean,
Well,
Amy, maybe. But there's more of the women than the men that have dropped dead over the years. No offense, Albert. That's it, I think.
Yeah, if you
character,
want,
worth checking out.
Find some clips of her on YouTube if you can. She's a right cracker.
Sadly, a bit forgotten these days,
Yeah.
but I mean, she doesn't stand up next to so many of the older names like your Elsies, your Inas, your Minis,
she wasn't
Marthas, and everything.
bombastic or in your face.
No.
And she didn't have anything to prove. That's why I kind of liked her. She felt like she was who she was, and if you take it or leave it, but she's very confident.
Yeah.
She's also a bit of a socialist as well.
Indeed.
Watch out, Americans.
And with that, I think we'll end our YouTube upload character profile retro thing.
Yeah, okay.
Bye. See you next time.